Sharon Greenwood, an investigative reporter, spends the anniversary of her FBI father's death reviewing his final frantic notes, records detailing illegal arms shipments, and the chilling phrase, "The pact holds." Her father, Michael Greenwood, was ruled dead in a simple accident 15 years ago. The shift into danger begins when she receives an anonymous text. The accident was a lie. The vow is the truth. Find it where he rests. Driven by years of doubt, Sharon drives to the desolate cemetery late that night. In the heavy fog, she finds 7 men in black suits standing in rigid formation, bowing over her father's tombstone. Their leader places a heavy, antique silver medallion on the stone, bearing the initials RV and the words, "Vow Honored." The man, Raymond Verone, steps forward, his presence cold and commanding. He confirms her father was murdered and that the killers are still hunting for the proof Michael left behind. He warns her, "Your father paid my debt with his life. I'll pay mine with his vengeance. You are now under my protection." Her search for truth has instantly become a matter of life and death. Sharon's hand trembled as she stared at Raymond Verone, the man whose name had appeared in dozens of her father's coded reports. A mob boss, the kind of criminal her father had spent his entire career fighting. And yet here he stood, claiming protection, claiming a debt. "I don't need protection from a mobster," she spat, backing away from the tombstone. "Especially not from you. My father died trying to put people like you away." Raymond's jaw tightened, but his voice remained eerily calm. "Your father saved my life 15 years ago during a federal sting operation. I was an informant then, caught between two worlds. Michael Greenwood pulled me out of an ambush that would have killed me and my younger brother. He gave us a chance to survive." "So what? You think that makes you heroes together?" Sharon's voice cracked with rage and grief. "No, it makes me indebted, and it got him killed." He pulled out a worn photograph from his jacket. Her father, younger, standing beside a teenage Raymond outside a safe house. "Victor Dragomir discovered your father was closing in on his trafficking network. The car accident was staged. Dragomir's signature method: brake line cut, accelerant planted. Michael knew too much, and Dragomir made sure he'd never testify." Sharon felt the world tilt beneath her feet. 15 years of grief, of unanswered questions, suddenly crystallized into a single, burning truth. Her father had been murdered, and the man responsible was still out there. Why now? Why tell me this now? Because Dragomir knows you've been asking questions. You've been digging through your father's old case files, contacting his former colleagues. He's already sent someone to watch you. Raymond nodded toward the cemetery gates. "In fact, they're here now." Sharon turned just as headlights flooded the cemetery entrance. A black SUV roared through the gates, tires screeching on the gravel path. Raymond moved with lethal precision, pulling Sharon behind a massive marble monument as gunfire erupted through the fog. His men, the 6 who had been bowing at the grave, scattered into defensive positions, returning fire with practiced efficiency. Raymond pressed Sharon against the cold stone, his body shielding hers as bullets chipped away at the monument above their heads. "This is your protection," he said through gritted teeth. This is what your father's investigation cost him, and this is what it will cost you if you refuse my help." The firefight lasted less than 3 minutes. When the SUV finally retreated, one of Raymond's men lay wounded, and Sharon's entire reality had shattered. She wasn't just investigating her father's death anymore. She was living it. "Get her to the car," Raymond ordered. "We move now." Sharon wanted to refuse, wanted to run to the police, to anyone but this criminal who claimed protection. But as she looked at the bullet holes in the stone that had been inches from her head, she realized the terrifying truth. Raymond Verone was the only thing standing between her and Victor Dragomir's assassins. She got in the car. Raymond's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building in the financial district, fortified like a military compound. Armed guards stood at every entrance. Security cameras covered every angle. Sharon counted at least 12 men patrolling the perimeter as they arrived. "You'll stay here until we neutralize the immediate threat," Raymond said, leading her through a foyer lined with priceless art that probably belonged in museums. "There are rules. You don't leave without my permission. You don't contact anyone without clearance. You don't make yourself a target." "I'm not a prisoner," Sharon shot back. "No, you're under protection. There's a difference." He poured himself a whiskey, then offered her one. She refused. "Your father understood something you don't yet. Sometimes justice requires compromise. Sometimes the law isn't enough." "So I'm supposed to trust a criminal, work with the Mafia to catch another criminal?" Sharon's voice dripped with contempt. Raymond's expression hardened. "Your father trusted me with information that could have ended my organization. Instead of using it, he made me a promise. If anything happened to him, I would protect you and help him finish what he started. That was the vow." He pulled out a sealed envelope, her father's handwriting across the front, "For Sharon when she's ready." Sharon's breath caught. She recognized that handwriting, had studied it years in his old notebooks. With shaking hands, she opened the envelope and read her father's final message to her. "Sharon, if you're reading this, I'm gone." And Raymond kept his word. "Trust him. I know what he is, but I also know what he's capable of becoming. The evidence I've gathered is hidden where only you can find it. Follow the pact. Victor Dragomir murdered innocent people, children in his trafficking network. Stop him. Make it matter. I love you, Dad." Tears blurred Sharon's vision. Her father's words, his trust in Raymond, the weight of his final mission, it all crashed down on her at once. "You have 72 hours to decide," Raymond said quietly. "Help me honor the vow, or I'll put you on a plane to somewhere Dragomir will never find you. But if you run, your father's evidence dies with him, and Dragomir continues destroying lives." Sharon looked at the letter, then at Raymond. This criminal, this mobster, was offering her the one thing she'd wanted for 15 years, the truth and the chance for justice. "I need to know everything," she said finally. "Every detail about my father's investigation, about Dragomir, about this pact." Raymond nodded. "Then we start tomorrow. Tonight, you rest, because once we begin, there's no turning back. If you can't stand people who profit from human trafficking and murder innocent people to protect their empires, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments, type "Justice for Michael," because what Sharon discovered next only made Victor Dragomir's crimes more horrifying. Morning light filtered through bulletproof windows as Raymond spread files across the dining table. Photographs of shipping routes, financial transactions, testimony from victims who'd never gotten their day in court. Dragomir's empire was vast, stretching from Eastern Europe through Asia, built on arms dealing and human trafficking. Your father spent 3 years building this case. He embedded himself deep, too deep. Dragomir got suspicious and started eliminating anyone who might be an informant. That's when Michael came to me. Sharon studied a photograph of Victor Dragomir. Cold eyes, an expensive suit, the kind of man who looked more like a CEO than a monster. Why you? Why trust a rival crime boss? Because I owed him my life, and because Michael knew something about me that most people don't. I have limits, lines I won't cross. Raymond's voice carried an edge of steel. Children, forced labor, these things disgust me. Dragomir has no such boundaries. Your father understood that common enemies make strange allies. He pulled out a leather journal, her father's handwriting, filling every page. This is what you need. Michael's insurance policy. Coded locations of evidence, names of witnesses still alive, bank accounts that can be traced. But the locations are encrypted using details only you would know. Places from your childhood, memories only a daughter would understand. Sharon took the journal with reverence, flipping through pages of her father's meticulous documentation. Then she saw it. The packed holes where the maple stood. I know this. My childhood home. We had a massive maple tree in the backyard. Dad and I buried a time capsule under it when I was 8. Then that's where we start. Raymond stood, already moving. We leave in an hour. The house was sold years ago, but we'll get access. Breaking and entering? Sharon raised an eyebrow. Let's call it aggressive archaeology, Raymond replied with the ghost of a smile. Welcome to working outside the law, Ms. Greenwood. The house looked smaller than Sharon remembered. Painted a different color, with a garden where her mother's roses used to grow. The new owners were away on vacation. Raymond's intelligence was thorough, and Sharon found herself standing in the backyard where she'd played as a child, where her father had pushed her on a swing hanging from that massive maple tree. Except the tree was gone, cut down years ago, leaving only a stump. It's still here, Sharon said, kneeling beside the stump. The roots go deep. Raymond's men brought shovels, and they began digging. 2 feet down, Sharon's shovel hit metal. Together, she and Raymond unearthed a waterproof case, sealed and intact. Inside wasn't just the time capsule of her childhood memories. Beneath the old toys and letters was a USB drive wrapped in protective plastic and a handwritten note. Phase 1. Follow the bird. The bird? Raymond frowned. Sharon's eyes widened. The Bluebird Diner. My dad took me there every Sunday morning. He always sat in the same booth. They drove across the city to the diner, now abandoned and scheduled for demolition. Sharon led Raymond to the corner booth, running her hands under the table until her fingers found it, a small carved bird, a hidden compartment behind it. Inside was a key and an address. FBI Evidence Storage, Facility 7, Locker 1547. This is it. This is where he hid everything, Sharon breathed. Raymond checked his watch. The facility changes guard shifts at midnight. That's when we move. Facility 7 was a nondescript warehouse on the edge of the city, protected by minimal security. Most people had forgotten it existed. Raymond's team disabled the cameras while Sharon and Raymond slipped inside, moving through rows of evidence lockers containing the forgotten remnants of closed cases. Locker 1547 was marked with her father's badge number. Sharon's hands shook as she inserted the key. The locker opened to reveal 3 boxes of meticulously organized files. Testimony from 12 trafficked victims, now in witness protection. Financial records showing Dragomir shell companies. Video evidence of transactions. Location logs of his operations. And the crown jewel. Video of Dragomir personally ordering the execution of a federal informant. "This is enough to destroy him," Raymond said, voice tight with barely controlled rage. "This is enough to bring down his entire network." Sharon clutched a file containing photographs of children rescued from one of Dragomir's operations, their faces haunted, their childhood stolen. "My father died protecting these people, died so this evidence could exist. And now we finish it." Raymond placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture of solidarity. "We leak this to the right people. We make sure Dragomir can't bury it, can't silence it. We make your father's sacrifice mean something." If you believe that protecting children and stopping human trafficking is worth any risk, hit that subscribe button. People like Victor Dragomir profit from silence, and you need to hear what Sharon and Raymond did to make sure the world finally listened. Back at the penthouse, Sharon and Raymond spent hours digitizing the evidence, creating redundant copies, preparing leak packages for journalists Sharon trusted. The work brought them closer, the shared purpose forging something unexpected between them. "Why do you do this?" Sharon asked during a rare break, watching Raymond coordinate with his men. "You're a criminal. You profit from illegal activities. Why draw the line on trafficking?" Raymond was quiet for a long moment. "My mother was trafficked from Ukraine when she was 16. She escaped, built a life, had me and my brother. But she never forgot. Neither did I." He met Sharon's eyes. "I'm not a good man, Sharon, but I have rules, and Dragomir violates every single one of them." The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. This wasn't the cold Mafia boss from the cemetery. This was a man shaped by trauma, choosing a dark path, but drawing boundaries in that darkness. "My father saw something in you," Sharon said softly. "I'm starting to understand what." "Your father was a better man than I'll ever be. But he taught me that redemption isn't about becoming perfect. It's about choosing which lines you'll never cross and which debts you'll always pay." Raymond's gaze intensified. "I owe your safety, but I'm starting to realize I'd protect you even without the debt." The air between them shifted, charged with an attraction Sharon couldn't deny. This was dangerous, impossible, everything she shouldn't want. But as Raymond moved closer, as his hand cupped her face with surprising gentleness, she realized she'd already made her choice. She'd trusted him, to work with him, to see the man beneath the criminal reputation. "This can't end well," she whispered. "Nothing in my life ends well. But maybe this time we'll make it matter anyway." When he kissed her, Sharon felt 15 years of grief and isolation crack open. She wasn't alone anymore. She had an ally, a partner, something that felt dangerously close to love forged in the fires of shared purpose
and impossible circumstances.
They leaked the evidence through 3 separate channels: Sharon's journalist contacts, an anonymous tip to federal prosecutors, and a carefully orchestrated release to international human rights organizations. The news broke like a tsunami, flooding every major outlet within hours. Victor Dragomir's face plastered across screens worldwide, his crimes laid bare, his network exposed. But Raymond wasn't satisfied with just exposure. Dragomir will run. He has resources, safe houses, people who will hide him. We need to draw him out, end this permanently. How? Sharon asked. We use what he wants most, the original evidence. We let him think there's one last copy, one last chance to bury this, and we make sure he comes for it himself. Raymond set the trap at one of Dragomir's known transfer points, an abandoned shipping yard where his human cargo used to arrive. The plan was simple. Raymond would be there with the original files. Dragomir would send his people, or better yet, come himself. Federal agents would be standing by to make the arrest. I'm coming with you, Sharon insisted. Absolutely not. You've done your part. You've honored your father's memory. Let me finish this. He was my father. This is my fight, too. Sharon's voice left no room for argument. Besides, you're going to need a witness, someone who can testify to what happens. Raymond wanted to refuse, wanted to lock her in the penthouse where she'd be safe, but he saw the determination in her eyes. The same fierce resolve that had driven her father to take on Dragomir in the first place. Michael Greenwood's daughter wasn't the type to hide while others fought her battles. You stay behind cover. The moment shooting starts, you run. Understood? Sharon nodded, though they both knew she was lying. The shipping yard at midnight was a maze of rusted containers and broken dreams, shadows pooling in every corner. Raymond stood in the center of a cleared space, a briefcase supposedly containing the original evidence at his feet. Sharon hid 30 yards away behind a container, Raymond's men positioned throughout the yard, federal agents holding perimeter. The trap was perfect, until it wasn't. Victor Dragomir arrived not with a small team, but with an army. 20 heavily armed men pouring into the yard from multiple directions. Someone had leaked the plan, warned Dragomir, turned Raymond's trap into an ambush. Gunfire erupted from all sides. Raymond's men fell back, outnumbered, fighting for their lives. Federal agents rushed in, creating chaos in the darkness. And through it all, Victor Dragomir walked calmly toward Raymond, a gun in his hand and murder in his eyes. The great Raymond Verone. Dragomir's accent was thick, his smile cruel. Playing hero with a dead FBI agent's daughter. How touching. Your father should have stayed out of my business, he called toward Sharon's hiding spot. Now you'll join him. He raised his gun, not at Raymond, but scanning for Sharon. Raymond moved to block the shot, but Dragomir was faster, his aim finding Sharon's position as she emerged from cover. Time seemed to slow as Sharon saw the gun pointed at Raymond, saw Dragomir's finger on the trigger, saw the end of everything they had fought for. She ran. Faster than thought, faster than fear. She threw herself in front of Raymond just as Dragomir fired. The bullet hit her chest, spinning her backward into Raymond's arms. Pain exploded through her body, hot and overwhelming. She heard Raymond screaming her name, felt his hands trying to stop the bleeding, saw the rage transform his face into something terrifying and ancient. What happened next would be debated in court for months.
Raymond Verone, with Sharon bleeding in his arms, became something beyond human. He crossed the distance to Dragomir with inhuman speed, disarmed him with brutal efficiency, and delivered a beating that left Dragomir barely conscious by the time federal agents pulled him away. "Stay with me," Raymond commanded, cradling Sharon as paramedics rushed in. "You don't get to die. You don't get to leave me after making me feel something other than debt. Stay with me, Sharon." Did we get him?" Sharon's voice was barely a whisper. "We got him. It's over. The vow is paid. Your father can rest. But I need you to stay. Please." Comment, "Justice wins" if your team, Sharon and Raymond. Victor Dragomir's evil can't be allowed to triumph. Now watch what happens when Sharon fights for her life. Sharon's eyes fluttered closed as the ambulance doors shut.
3 months later, Sharon stood at her father's grave, no longer alone. The surgery had been touch and go, the recovery long and painful, but she'd survived. More than survived. She'd testified at Victor Dragomir's trial, watched him sentenced to life without parole, seen his entire network dismantled and his victims finally get justice. The evidence her father had died protecting had freed 43 people from trafficking operations, led to the arrest of 17 corrupt officials, and shut down arms shipments that would have fueled conflicts across 3 continents. Michael Greenwood's sacrifice had mattered. It had changed the world. Raymond approached quietly, dressed in a simple suit rather than his usual armor of expensive tailoring. He'd turned himself in after Dragomir's arrest, cooperating with federal prosecutors, taking responsibility for his own crimes while testifying against the rival networks. The judge, considering his role in bringing down Dragomir and his cooperation with the authorities, had sentenced him to 18 months with eligibility for parole. He'd served 11 months. This was his first day of freedom. "Your father would be proud of you," Raymond said, standing beside her at the tombstone. The silver medallion was still there, weathered but present. "He finished what he started." "We finished it," Sharon corrected. She took his hand, the touch still sending electricity through her, despite the months apart. "Midway, I have to ask." Raymond's voice was uncertain in a way she'd never heard before. "I've paid my debt to your father. I've served my time. But what I feel for you, that's not about obligation or vows. That's real. The question is, can you build a life with a man like me?" Sharon thought about the impossible journey that had brought them here. Her father's murder, the cemetery meeting, the evidence hunt, the moment she'd taken a bullet meant for him, the months of recovery with Raymond's letters arriving weekly, pouring out a heart she hadn't known he possessed. "My father trusted you with his life's work. He trusted you to protect me, to help me finish what he started. But more than that, he saw something in you worth redeeming. And so do I." She pulled him close, their foreheads touching. "You're not the same man you were a year ago. Neither am I. We've both been changed by this, by him, by each other. I don't know what our future looks like, but I know I want you in it." Raymond's kiss was soft, reverent, full of promise. "Then let's build something new, something your father would approve of, a life that honors the vow not through violence, but through the good we can do together." Sharon pulled back slightly, a smile playing at her lips. "I have some ideas about that, actually. investigative journalism focused on trafficking networks, a foundation in my father's name, and maybe a reformed consultant who knows how criminal organizations work from the inside. Using my past for good, your father really would have approved. They stood together at Michael Greenwood's grave, no longer bound by debt or vows, but by choice, by love forged in the darkest circumstances and tempered into something unbreakable, by a shared commitment to make the world a little safer, a little more just, one case at a time. The pact had been fulfilled, the vow honored, and from the ashes of tragedy and violence, something beautiful had emerged. Two wounded souls finding redemption in each other and purpose in continuing the work that had cost Michael Greenwood his life. Justice had been served, love had been found, and Michael Greenwood could finally rest, knowing his daughter was safe, his evidence had changed the world, and the man he'd saved all those years ago had become exactly the hero he'd always believed Raymond Verone could be. If you watched or listened up to this point, comment the country you are watching this from. Represent your country. As they walked away from the cemetery together, hand in hand, Sharon felt the weight of 15 years of grief finally lift. Her father's death had meaning, his sacrifice had mattered, and she'd found something she'd never expected in the darkest of places, a partner, a purpose, and a future worth fighting for. The vow was complete, but their story was just beginning.